Hello. Okay, we're live. Welcome everyone to our SAP community call today. Super excited to have you all here and to already see that the chat is very lively. Welcome, warm welcome from my side. I'm Lena from the SAP Community and Influencers team and your moderator for this call today, which is all about the SAP Cloud Application Programming Model. And I'm more than happy to be joined here by our expert from the team. We have 3 speakers with us today. I'd like to introduce them all to you. Let's start with Sebastian van Syckel, our product owner and architect for the Node.js runtime. Uwe Klinger, our chief development architect for the service consumption and platform integration. And Daniel Hutzel, chief product owner and architect in the SAP Cloud Application Programming Model team. So Daniel will actually start today with an outlook for the roadmap 2022, followed by 2 demos from Sebastian and Uwe. And there will be a little bit of announcement then as well towards the end. After then we have time to address your questions. So we dedicated some time towards the end really to get your questions answered. But I know that we also have experts from the Cloud Application Programming Model team in the chat that are also participating. So don't hesitate and wait with your questions that might come up during the presentation or during the demo. You can already post them in the chat here in YouTube. You need to be logged in to participate in the chat, so start with that right away and continue with, here in the chat, telling us where you're from, because we really want to get to know you too. Right, and with that being said, I'll see you guys later in the Q&A, but I'll hand over to Daniel to get started.
Thanks, Lena. Let's get started with the agenda overview. I think after the disclaimer, of course. Roadmap, GraphQL adapter demo, service consumption as already introduced by Lena. So let me start with the roadmap of this year, maybe also a bit beyond. And actually starting by having a brief look at what we achieved in that slide, illustrated with these 2 pictures. The left-hand side shows the list of tags in our SAP internal Stack Overflow, which was rolled out to all the developer community within SAP beginning January. And we joined in February in rank number 14 or so when it comes to number of posts, and within 2 to 3 weeks we overtook the others, tags like Java, Cloud Foundry, even ABAP and SAP UI5, and now are ranked number 2 up to be number 1 in a few weeks. So what do I want to tell with that? Yes, Capacity is used within SAP and increasingly used. And the right-hand side shows the downloads from NPM. So only looking at Node.js sub CDS package, which is the blue line here. And since we started in end of 2020, it always grows and increasingly grows. We also can see some nice effects that we create a nice pull, obviously, to other SAP libraries which are available from NPM. Means also there we can deduce still increasing adoption also externally. Internal downloads are likely included as well. Okay, going to the real roadmap and looking what we have. I cannot explain each and any of the listed topics, and would put some on stage, highlight some. Simplify deployment, to start with the very top. So we figured out that Cloud Foundry or deployment to Cloud Foundry still deserves some improvement. We added some new tools, CDS add, which automate certain steps in deployment. Related to that is what we do now also for Klinger. You have read likely or seen the blog by Uwe Klinger. So Uwe being the demonstrator for service consumption in this call as well. And this blog was like telling how to deploy CAP applications on Klinger, but it was still restricted availability. So we want to make this general available with full support from our teams. Uwe is driving this as well. Streamline MTX. So MTX, in case you know it, is about automating deployment and tenant onboarding when you have a SaaS application, which is quite a lot of work to do. For example, creating all the HDI containers in HANA, etc. And also it manages extensibility. And this thing needs to be very streamlined, and we need to streamline that, and we invest in that a lot. So interesting would be maybe in the feedback, in the Q&A, how much are you as external customers interested or in contact with these kind of things? Are you building SaaS applications at the end of the day? So feature toggles, I rather skip this. It's a most required feature by internal SAP units, and we are delivering that soon. Universal season, also too much to tell about this. New OData library. I think in the last recap, we informed that in performance analysis, we found that CAP is able to serve up to 50,000 requests per second, unless you switch on OData protocol, because the library we used so far had some limitation. It's stalled at 1K today. And so we invested in this new data library, and when we released that, and this is to happen in the first half of this year, then we will be able to realize these 50K in green room environments. So when you go to BTP and you have other network gateways in front, of course, that is limited, but we are not limited by the 1K anymore. GraphQL is going to be GA, and we also want to invest in consuming GraphQL. We will learn more in Sebastian's part of the presentation. And regarding REST API or consuming, we extend this also to any REST API. So currently, we support consuming REST APIs, but still with some OData flavor. And this will change. We will be able to consume any REST API. So I have to speed up a bit. Going for messaging, we currently support for productive use enterprise messaging, so SAP BTP enterprise messaging. And we just implemented for our internal use also messaging via Redis as a very cheap and simple alternative, which we use for intra-cluster messaging. So we ourselves, for example, in Streamlined MTX. In addition, on the plan for this year is supporting Kafka as a messaging channel for event streams, but also for classic Hutzel. Now, databases. The first thing is about if you used HANA and try to fill in data, you likely encountered the issues that redeployment the same data is rejected by the HDI deployer. So we will do that in the future using our CDS deploy feature, which we already use today in SQLite. Also to distinguish between, is it really initial data or is it only test data, which is not possible with the HDI feature. SQLite parity was very much requested by internal teams who enjoy this grow as you go approach of CAP very much, and the ability to develop locally with SQLite as a stand-in, as a cheap and fast and local stand-in for productive HANA database. The only thing that was a bit sad was that we didn't support all the path expressions we supported in HANA, so we want to close this gap. Then Postgres support now being official. Yeah, we had this Postgres engagement already before, and we have a collaboration with communities, so Gregor, Volker, etc. But we didn't support Postgres officially so far, and not for productive use. So the plan is to find a way to support Postgres. We still will support HANA as our primary database, and this will receive the most support and optimizations. Related to Postgres is that we need also a solution for schema evolution, and as already talked in the past, we will likely pick Liquibase and or Flyway to do so. So coming to the last part. Yeah, going open source, very much requested, I think, and talked about, and also on each community call, Jürgen Müller got asked about this. Yeah, long story short, we will do it. And as Jürgen also mentioned in the TechEd, don't expect it before 2023. Quite simple, because we have to do it in a major update. And the next major, so the very next major is now in end of April, but that's too short for open source CAP. So the next one is in April next year. But we might already release some things before. Just wanted to give you a glimpse of how this will likely happen. We don't open source everything, but a very core subset, but something which allows you to build something reasonable with it. So it should not just be a teaser and not just be a local development edition, but being able to be used also for production. But it will be a core subset of the things. Around this subset, there are options and white spaces where a community can go in, as well as we might go in together maybe with you. So for example, CDS-PG, Gregor, Volker, we will reach out to you for how to collaborate on that. Redis, which we did now internally, we might also say we sort of donate it to open source and then continue together with interested community members. Same maybe with GraphQL. All that is not decided how we do that, but like to learn about your feedback on that. And then maybe the core that we go open source with is best described by looking at what will not become open source, as least that is our current assumption. Starts even with the CDS compiler, the big Antler-based CDS compiler that we know today. Maybe this will only be in the enterprise edition, but of course you will be able to do models and compile models also in the open source community edition. And some generic features, so very rather advanced enterprise features like temporal data, data privacy, which in that case also connects to a BTP service, the data management service, and other services like the retention management service, and also audit logging, similarly connecting to the audit logging service of BTP. So these kind of things will likely be reserved for the enterprise edition, maybe also the HANA support, and maybe also other managed databases and things like that. So with that, I'm done with the roadmap outlook and would hand over to Sebastian for GraphQL. And you take over sharing as well, right?
Yep. So I hope you can see my screen now. You probably see. Do you also see this preview? Okay. So yes, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I want to present something that we added towards the end of last year, and that's our GraphQL adapter for the Node.js runtime. Here also you can later on then follow the links to our Cloud Samples repository, where you can check it out for yourself and play around with it, and also documentation around it. Just a disclaimer in the beginning, as it's also mentioned in the documentation and back then in the release notes, is that this is currently an experimental feature, and actually it was developed in a bachelor thesis, the state that's currently in. But as Daniel said, we are planning to make this generally available sometime this year, so that you have things like authentication, authorization, tenant separation, all these sorts of things that you need for production. We will have to add on to this, but as you'll see in the demo, it's already quite advanced. So, okay. So if we take a look at this architecture to diagram to just dive in. So many of you who have maybe already seen this. So this is basically, the very big picture of what is actually CAP. And so we concentrate with our domain model, or with your domain model actually, and the business logic here in the middle with the core. And we have a connection to adapters to the left and connectors to the right. So the typical use case you may know is you have a Fiori Elements UI, so that typically uses or always uses OData. So the request comes in via the OData protocol adapter, runs through CAP, runs through your handlers, runs through the generic provided handlers, and then typically connects in production to a HANA database. So basically, you always have something on the left that connects you to the outside world, and something on the right to consume databases, but also, for example, S4 systems in our service consumption workflow that Uwe will present later on. And the important thing is that regardless where you're coming from, so whether it's an OData or a REST call or a GraphQL call, you will always go through this generic core. And I'm gonna show you this in a demo in a second, just to go a little bit more into detail here. So you have your domain models in the middle that you define in CDS, and those are then compiled to our universal schema notation format called season. And then typically when you deploy, of course, we're going to compile again the season to SQL DDL statement, so we can deploy the data structure on the database. And now with the GraphQL part, we also have to compile this to a GraphQL schema. And this actually was done in collaboration with a colleague from SAP Graph. So so really that you also have the same querying capabilities that you need in order to serve enterprise applications. And we'll see later on what you can do with our adapter. And then when it comes to the runtime, so the app is running, you have requests coming in to this GraphQL protocol adapter. Then we have to take this query as it comes in. So the request in GraphQL that's based on an AST, so an abstract syntax tree, we will parse that to CQN, so the ubiquitous query format that you already know and you can work with in your custom handlers. And then later on, either you serve the request in a custom handler or it will reach our generic handlers. We will translate the CQN to SQL if the default mode is serving data from a database. Right. So, and this is now what I wanted to show. So I hope it's big enough. I already increased the font size, but otherwise we won't be able to see a lot, I guess, if I make it even smaller. So this is the CAP samples repository. So you can, again, check that out yourself when you follow the link. And we have this kind of bookshop service just to play around with. And what we use is the general books entity that you already know from the bookshop model. So this is no new entity. This was already there in CAP samples, and we have an ID, a title, an author, and so forth. And then later on, we're also gonna need an orders entity. That's actually from here because it's a very small one. It only has an ID, managed for properties, and then it has an association to a book. and it has a quantity of books that you want to order. So those are the entities we're going to need in the demo. And now I'll just fire up the server, CTS watch, and start it, which will automatically, of course, deploy the data structure and some demo data to in-memory SQLite database. And then let's just take a look at the start page that comes up. And we'll see down here, actually, that we have this new endpoint, GraphQL. And at the top of it, we see the list of other services that are included in the sample. So we have the browse service, the bookshop service, and the admin service, and then one GraphQL service down here. And the reason is that typically OData services are served individually. So for each OData service, you will have one endpoint to serve. But in GraphQL, you typically only have one endpoint, and which service you are talking to is basically part of the query. And now if you navigate to that link, you will see this nice UI where you can already execute queries. This is provided by, not by us, but by the GraphQL Node.js module. But here you already can see, you can actually already type some queries in and send the data off. But actually for the demo, I'll be using Insomnia because it's just a little bit nicer and I can already have prepared some queries. So I'd say we switch over there and take a look. So this is everything, what you basically know already. So you have an OData request, you want to specify which information you need. So you have a $select, you want to specify which associations to expand and so forth, and you need a $expand for that. And if we run this query, then we'll see, okay, this looks very familiar to us. We get some books, we have Wuthering Heights by Emily, and we have Jane Eyre and stuff like that. So this is the typical OData request that you know, and let's see how that looks like in GraphQL. So in GraphQL, you have, again, only one endpoint, and you specify which service you're talking to in your query. And the big difference here is that you always specify all the data that you want to have. So by OData, by default, if you wouldn't specify any query options, you would basically always get the full set of data. And GraphQL tries to limit overfetching by you really having to specify which data you want to have. So if I execute this one, we'll see data looks pretty much the same. We get all the books with the expanded authors, the expanded chapters, and so forth. So this is kind of like the first basic query that you can execute. Now I mentioned that we want to have query option capabilities similar to the ones that are in OData. So in OData, for example, I can specify a filter. I can say I'm not only interested in all the books that contain the in the title. So I do this in the filter clause. I kept the rest as it was. And we'll see that now we get only two books, Wuthering Heights again, and The Raven. And of course, this is very useful, especially if you are just giving your business users the possibility to filter through a bunch of data. So of course, we would like to also have that in GraphQL. And so what we do in the schema generation is actually we generated OData-like arguments. So here I can say, okay, I want to query the bookshop service, the books entity, and I want to also apply a filter here. So the filter again is I want the title to contain the, and I can execute this. I'll see the same data. And in this Insomnia, you also get a very nice interaction pattern is that I can, whoops, sorry, didn't want that. I can add some more and I'll say, okay, for example, I want to have an order by clause. So, and then let's say I'll take the stock and you see that I get the code completion here. And I want to have that descending. So I have to close this and now I can execute the query. And we'll see now the Raven gets displayed first and Wuthering Heights is the second one. So if you have, our GraphQL adapter gives you basically the same powerful query options that you have if you would consume a OData service. And again, I limit overfetching by really having to specify actually the data that I'm interested in, which limits resource consumption, network bandwidth needed, and so forth. Okay, that was it for querying data. Now also GraphQL, you can write data, and that's done with so-called mutations. So just to give you the example here for the orders, again, the OData style. So I'm going to talk to my orders entity. I'm going to create an order. Because we had the CUID aspect model to it, I don't have to specify an identifier myself that will be generated, but I have to say which book I want to order and in which quantity. So I sent that off, and you can see the order was created, and I get basically the entire entity that was created, because it's not possible in OData to specify that I'm only interested in certain return data if I create things. In GraphQL, actually, we can do this. So again, I will create an order. Also, again, I'll take book 201, quantity 5, and I say, okay, but I only want to have the ID and maybe the created at timestamp in the return body. So if I send this one, I can see that the order was created. I have an identifier I can continue working with, and I can use the created at timestamp for something that I need to do. Now, maybe let's go to the update. So this is also something that's very special in GraphQL, is that unlike REST or plain REST, what we also offer in OData is that you do not only update single entities, but you can actually update collections. Because what you have to do basically is specify via this filter argument which set of data you want to update, and then this input will be applied to all of them. Yeah, so of course, right now in my sample data, I only have one book called Wuthering Heights. So if I execute this, only one book will be updated, but I could have something different, and actually I could leave the filter clause away completely. So of course, this can be extremely dangerous, but that's just what GraphQL allows you to do. Things like this. Now, finally, I want to showcase in the coding once more this aspect of you have to write your domain model once, and then you have maybe this business logic here also once. What this does is just it reduces the stock of the books that I try to order, as long as this amount of books are actually in stock. So I'm going to update the books entity with the ID that gets that's part of the order. I'm going to reduce the quantity or the stock by the ordered quantity, but only if the result will be higher than 0. And if not, I'll reject the request and say sorry, I don't have that many books in stock. So, and yeah, just to prove the point, you probably believe me, but if I say I actually ordered twice 5 already, I had 12 in the beginning. So if I send this off, I'm going to expect an error message saying sorry, no, 5 are no longer in stock. And yeah, just again to prove the
I think we have an issue with the audio at the moment. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Lena. I think
Yes.
Sebastian dropped off the meeting.
Yes.
Maybe he has to redial in or something.
Okay, let's be spontaneous. Maybe Uwe, you can continue with your demo.
Yes, then I take over. Share my screen. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. And I share my screen. Can you see it? Good.
Yeah, I can see
Okay.
it. Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
then I start. Hello, I'd like to show you how to consume S/4HANA Cloud Services with a CAP application. For that, I will extend an existing application to manage risks by the capability to manage risks associated with a supplier. The risks are managed by the CAP application and stored in the SAP HANA Cloud, while the suppliers come from the S/4HANA Cloud system. They are available through the Business Partner API. As a first step, I will add the definition of the Business Partner API to the CAP application, and then I will advance the application to use this API and register the S/4HANA Cloud system to the BTP and create a connection to the Business Partner API. We find the API definition in the API Business Hub. And so we look for S/4HANA Cloud APIs, and I click here and search for the Business Partner API. And then we have here this OData v2 API, and there's an option to download the API. But first we need to log in. Click again on API specification and download the EDMX file. The application is already opened here in Visual Studio Code, and I import the API from my downloads folder using the CDS import command, which creates an external folder and puts a CSN file, which is converted from the EDMX file into this folder. We can also create a CDS file, which is more readable optionally. Now let's have a look at the model of the application. And you can see we have a space. We have a risk entity and a mitigations entity, and the risk entity should be extended with the supplier's information. So for that, first, let's get the API Business Partner API in here. And now we don't want to use all the information from the business partner. We're only interested in a part of the information, so we can create a for the supplier a projection on this Business Partner API and just take over the fields that you're interested in. And we can use other protection capabilities like changing the field names here as well. So now to get the supplier and the risks, I create an association to the supplier. And because of CAP's mocking capabilities, I can directly start the application with CDS Watch. We'll be able to access the suppliers as it would be a local entity. But to see some data, I have prepared some mock data here, which we will then also copy to the external folder. And we can see here 3 mocked business partners. So now let's have a look at the service. You can see our application consists of 2 services, a risk and a mitigation service. And here we also see the Business Partner API, which is mocked, and find the data here. Just only the values that we entered in the mock data. So let's go back. So now we want to extend the application's UI to be able to display the supplier and also have a value help to select the supplier. And to have this value help, we need to have another entity here that exposes the suppliers to the UI. So let's enter the service definition. And we just see here we have our 2 entities exposed, and I just need to add a 3rd entity that exposes the suppliers as well. This has also automatically updated here. Just can click on the suppliers, and I can now see the 3 suppliers from the mock data. transformed by the projection to the supplier's entity structure. Let's have a look at the UI of this application. So we have two UIs built into UI elements, one for risks, one for mitigations. And this is the way, sorry. Just click on the details screen for one entry. And here we want to add the supplier. To save a bit time, I've prepared this as well. So basically, we just need to add the supplier title here to have some UI title, and then it's added to the field group for the detail view. And at the end, we add a value help. So the screen is refreshed to see the supplier here. And click Edit, click on the value help, and can see the free entries from the mock data. So now let's do the setup on the cloud. For that, I've prepared a global account on BTP, where I want to add the S/4HANA Cloud System. I need to go to the Systems option here and click Register System. Okay, it's expired. Click Register System, give the system a name that I want to use in BTP, and select S/4HANA Cloud. Click on Register. Now it will create a registration token that I take over into S/4HANA Cloud System, where I already have opened the application maintain extensions on SAP BTP. In this application, I can just paste in the integration token, can also give a name, integration, press save. Now it connects to the BTP system. And after a few refreshes, I should see that the system is now registered. This adds automatically a new service to your global account, the S/4HANA Cloud Extensibility Service. Now we can create the actual connection to our business partner API. Going to the sub account, and one thing we need to do before we can do is we need to add entitlement for this new service. Search for S/4HANA Cloud Extensibility. Here again, we see the name of the system that we have added. Choose API access and add the service plan, save it. Once the entitlement has been saved, we can create a service instance of this type. Again, S/4HANA Cloud Extensibility, and add it to our Cloud Foundry space. The system is already pre-filled. Need to give it a name. When we create the service instance, additionally, a destination will be created, and we will use this destination to connect to the system. But before we can complete it, we need to enter some JSON here. I've prepared this JSON file before. Most notably, we need to give the system name again here, and we need to provide the scenario ID, the scenario of a communication arrangement. The scenario is required to get access to an API. If you look at the attributes of the API, you'll find a list of communication scenarios that provide access to this API. So we've chosen the first one. The rest of the configuration you can find hints in the subhelp portal. So let's create the service instance. And while this is being created, let's go back to our application and deploy the updated application. One thing I shouldn't forget, you could see that the supplier was displayed in the value help automatically just by adding it to the service. But the real application, we need to add some glue code, which I do here. The glue code forwards the request from the supplier's entity of the risk service to the API business partner API. By this, it will also do the transformations required by the projections. This is required because Couple only delegate requests to database entities automatically. And while mocking, everything is served from the database. Now let's go to the package JSON file. And CDS import automatically added this entry for the API business partner to the require section, where the kind or data v2 is automatically set from the service definition. and the path to the model is given. Now we need to make sure that this connects to our destination. And so I add here a section for the production profile, give the credentials which contain the destination name that we have chosen before for the S/4HANA Cloud Service instance. Then also we need to give a path to the API on the S/4HANA Cloud System. You can find this path as well here on the API Business Hub. In the configuration details, you see then exactly this path. You can take it over from there. So now we can deploy the application. Usually we will do an MTOR deployment, I guess, but to speed it a bit up for the demo, a bit optimized approach here. And in the meanwhile, I just want to point out one important thing. In the MTA YAML file, you need to make sure to add the dependency to the destination service to your CAP service. So you can basically can ignore this here for now. You need to have a service instance of service destination with plan light or another plan, which is supported by this service, so that CAP can get the destination from destination service and access the S/4HANA Cloud System. So let's see. It's starting. Okay, application is deployed. So I already configured the UI of the application in the Fiori Launchpad. And you see again two tiles, but it's not a fake Launchpad, it's the real Fiori Launchpad. And we can click on the risks application. And if I did no mistake, yes, looks good. We can see here the application with the new field supplier. It should be also able to get the suppliers from the S/4HANA Cloud System, which has unfortunately some useless test data. You can see here, it's actually reading data from the system. So that's what I want to show you. To wrap it up, I showed you how to import external service definitions from SAP API Business Hub, how to register a S/4HANA Cloud System. You can also register other cloud systems. You saw in the drop-down box. There are different types as well, like Ariba, for example. And how to call services using S/4HANA Cloud Extensibility Service, and it works similar for the other service as well. I also want to highlight that in CAP, everything is a service. So external services are services such as services that are served from a local database. So you can model projections on top of it. You can use SQL queries and other features. You can try this demo out by yourself using this consumer remote service from S/4HANA Cloud using CAP tutorial in the tutorial navigator. And there's also a tutorial where you can create the application from scratch. And there's the same tutorial based on S/4HANA on-premise as well. Yeah, that's at the end for my demo. And I think I hand over to Sebastian now.
Exactly, we have Sebastian back, and he let me know that there's a few more key takeaways to share. So again, over to you, Sebastian.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. So yeah, I don't know. My computer died on me. So you basically saw the entire demo already. So I was basically done with this. It's just about these final key takeaways at the end. So I really just wanted to focus on you. You do your domain modeling, you implement your business logic, you do it once. It doesn't matter which protocol adapter the request comes into. It doesn't matter what you are connecting to. Yeah, CAP will take care of it, that everything is funneled through yeah, the one central core and the one generic business logic here. Quickly as an outlook, so I said already the GraphQL adapter is currently not ready for production, but that's planned for later on this year. And also, as Daniel mentioned, we're going to look in the outbound direction. So not only incoming GraphQL queries, but also how CAP can construct GraphQL queries, and then you can concern GraphQL APIs. So yeah, thank you very much. And now Sebastian with the announcements.
Yeah, hi everyone. Here's another Sebastian from the CAP team. Yeah, I would like to give you two announcements today. The first one is we will go for a regular customer and partner roundtable, similar to the one which you might know from the very Elements colleagues and other departments who already do this on a regular basis. So far, we did not have this for CAP, and we would like to change this. So we will start in April and then continue on a quarterly basis. And basically, as you might also know it from other teams, will be a mix of updates as today, given by the CAP development team and also by our customers and partners, so by the community. And hopefully we will a lot of interactive things, discussions, questions, sharing best practices, your feedback, and so on and so forth, feature requests maybe, and so on. Yeah, if you're interested in this and would like to get an invitation to this, to those meetings or be pinged actively by us, then please send a short mail to michael.hellenschmidt@sap.com or to me, se.schmidt@sap.com. And of course, we will also announce it then again in social media on our community page for CAP. I'll probably announce it in a dedicated blog as well. So please feel free to join this and yeah, join the community, get active, and get also the latest updates by the CAP team. Yeah, that's the first announcement, and then one more, even bigger one actually. For those who know CAP, you know Recap. This is basically the event of the year for CAP. Initiated by the community, so by our great friends Volker and Gregor Wolf as well, who are really helping here a lot. Thanks again to you guys. And obviously, we'll go for a third edition of Recap in June this year, beginning of June. Basically, the dates are almost fixed, will be most probably the 1st and 2nd of June, so we do 2 half days this time. And this is absolutely the highlight of the year. Again, a mix of demos and presentations by our team, as well as interesting and fancy stuff by the customers and partners again. So looking forward to this. Ensure to join. Will be again live streamed as well. And we'll invite probably the speakers to a room this time. So please stay tuned. We'll announce it on all our pages, channels again. Looking forward to this event. Yeah, and with this, yeah, I hand over to Elena and hopefully some interesting questions which came up during the presentation.
Thank you, Sebastian, and thanks for presenting and demoing the last 50 minutes. So we have 10 minutes left now for Q&A. And I see that Daniel already posted into the chat that there is open questions, because I see that we have a very lively chat and a lot of questions already got answered. Daniel, you actually, so there was one from Tobias, any further TypeScript plans such as automatic type generation? And you already mentioned that you will now answer in the Q&A. So go ahead, I think that one is addressed to you.
Right. Yes, so Tobias, as you also mentioned in the chat, or supposed, it will be part of community activities, but we would do it even if we would not open source CAP. So we have it as a very prominent topic on our roadmap for CAP, and actually just started working on with several people now on it. So 2 years back or so, I did a POC personally. And yeah, the idea is really, you get the CDS model, you get code completion when you refer to payloads, data structures in JavaScript and TypeScript related to the CDS models. And very important for us is not only when you do static coding, but also when you do dynamic querying using CDSQL. But we already proved that this is possible, and this is what we haven't seen so far from any TypeScript integration, but we'll deliver that. Also reached out already to Simon and people that worked on the open source variant of TypeScript. So would be looking forward to doing that in collaboration, maybe working on different angles of the overall thing. Yeah.
Thank you. And thumbs up to you. That sounds great. To his reaction here. There was one more, but I guess that was already answered by Uwe, right? Scott asked any preferences between consumption of S/4HANA cloud service with destination or with system. That one already get answered.
Yes, I already answered this. I hope this
Is that
fine.
clear? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, maybe
Any open questions there?
Yeah, maybe you repeat the answer. Basically, it means destination should be the answer, right?
Yes, destination should be used.
Yeah.
This particular scenario that I showed would also work if you consume the service via the service, access it via the service instance, but some other scenarios will not work because they have more complicated authentication flows, which work only via destination service, or you need to implement by your own, which I think is not preferred.
Sure.
Perfect, thanks. In the meantime, as I see there's been a lot of questions, please, if there has been a question that you guys asked in the chat that has not yet been answered, please retype it here again real quick so we can now address it in the last couple of minutes. I also shared everyone's SAP community profiles in the chat, as well as the topic page link for the SAP Cloud Application Programming Model topic page in the SAP community. And of course, also follow our tag. So whenever our speakers or anyone in the SAP community publishes content tagged with CAP, then you can also get notifications and know right away about the latest and greatest. Tobias has one more question. Any way to mock REST-based queries besides using another package?
Yes.
That go again to you, Daniel?
Yes, thanks. That would be exactly also part of this consuming and REST services, that we would provide a way to mock these queries with CAP-based services. Yeah, the way we are used to do that with the data. Another GraphQL is coming in, I see. The GraphQL is still in the experimental. Yeah, oh, Lena, maybe you can read it.
I'll read out the question.
Yeah.
GraphQL is still in experimental according to the CAP page. Is it good to use in production apps already, or should I wait?
You are on the safe side if you wait, but it should be good already. So the implementation has a very high quality standards. So no guarantees for anything, but that will be GA soon.
Yeah. So at least if you're not going into the multi-tenancy realm, right?
Yes.
So tenant separation is always something very critical, and that should be bulletproof. But yeah, in general, it's doing a pretty good job already.
Maybe one more question that I spotted on top. Somebody asked whether we will be available on Neo, and Gregor already answered, likely not, and this is true. But maybe a question that I have to you, and let us know offline, maybe, would you be interested to see CAP on premise and have some more support on that? Yeah, very vaguely.
Let us know in the chat and or in the SAP community. I know that everyone is super active there. One more question that came in from Ahmed. Will SAP keep XS Classic for Neo, but CAP for CF?
This is sort of the situation today, yes. And exactly, CAP for CF and beyond for Kubernetes, Kuma, and whatever will come.
Maybe Ahmed, thumbs up if that helped. Okay, more questions. So Scott asked, any plan to bypass draft mode when option is enabled? Avoid draft edit, draft activate, and draft prepare.
it's a good point. Yes, should be possible to also access these entities or draft-enabled entities without the draft choreography of requests. But very important, draft also has a persistent lock related to it. So when somebody starts a draft, so starts editing an object, then it is locked. And this lock is meant to be respected by everybody else. So we will enforce these persistent locks also when you bypass the draft choreography fee, because otherwise we are cheating the draft users and end up in lost updates.
And we don't want to do that. Tobias asked, in which programming language? Is that still referring to the question from Ahmed?
Yeah, that is also what I just wanted to find out.
Okay, and then that's just the feedback left here. All right. I also posted for everyone that's interested the link to our upcoming SAP community calls. And you have one more minute maybe for one last question that you guys can use.
So, Tobias.
And
sorry, Lena?
Sorry, I just wanted to briefly let everyone know that the recording of our call is now actually right available after we stop our live stream. And the question was earlier in the chat whether the slide deck will be shared, which will be the case. So we will share the slide deck here in the description, and also the most relevant links. So this call, like the link that you actually use to join this call, will stay the very same, and you can access the recording right away and share it with whomever you want to share it. That's all from my side. Any closing words from you guys, from our speakers here, Sebastian, Daniel, Uwe, and Sebastian?
Maybe I start just to confirm, I've read the comments on-prem and the +1 more vote. So yes, and it's Node.js and Java, the programming language, of course. And yeah, we are taking that. And last words was nice feedback that we saw, nice questions that we have answered, and hope that this format is valuable and looking forward to the next ones.
All right. Any further questions, please post them in the community. I want to be mindful of everyone's time, and we're at the top of the hour. So thank you everyone for joining today, taking your time. Thanks to the Cloud Application Programming Model team for presenting and demoing to the SAP community. I'll see you soon, and have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.